And now joining us for more on it is House Minority Whip, Congresswoman Catherine Clark of Massachusetts. Congresswoman, thank you for taking the time. Let's start with the funding fight. The House voting this morning on that short-term plan to keep the government running. Democrats are against that plan, as Michael just laid out. But what's your leverage?
Listen, Anna, it is good to be with you, and we are minutes away from this vote being called. And this is going to be a close vote, but it is not a close call. Democrats stand firmly on the ground that we are fighting for the American people, and we do not think that health care should be a luxury item in this country. We have watched the Republicans come in and systematically put health care out of reach, make it unaffordable for the American people, whether that's their cuts to Medicaid and the closing of rural hospitals that we are already seeing, of nursing homes, the cuts to medical research, $500 billion cuts to Medicare. These are millions of people that are going to lose access to.
All right, I got to stop it there. So what these Democrats are doing is they're playing on people's intelligence. So you see how she just tried to make it seem like because Trump wants to cut a lot of medical stuff, programs, that he's causing these rural hospitals to close, that somehow there's going to be a shutdown of everything. That's not true. And I'm going to tell you why Trump is doing what he's doing and why these type of politicians, and then women, do this a lot. Like, she's really pushing for like social issues. If you go to the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, it basically says that what she's suggesting that they pass this funding goes against that amendment, because the states are supposed to control their health care. It's not supposed to be controlled by the government. The government really shouldn't even be funding it. The government is not supposed to, the federal government rather, shouldn't even be involved in these types of programs, because the states were worried about, once we unionize, will you try to overtake or overrule state sovereignty? So that's why it's put like that. And then the other effect from this is a lot of these things that's been passed, like Obamacare especially, has caused a spike in healthcare overall. And you want to know how. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, and they keep voting for these things and then wonder why their premiums are going up. You got to understand capitalism. And this is how capitalism works in a nutshell. Capitalism is supposed to be about free markets. And free markets, you're not supposed to regulate. When you start regulating, you're kind of going against what capitalism is, and the free market is no longer free. So guess what? When you pass bills like Obamacare, where the state is starting to subsidize healthcare, guess what? These for-profit businesses, pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, they're all in business. They're in business first. Saving your life is just part of their bottom line. The more lives they save, the more money they can make. So you got to understand, what comes first is their bottom line. So in saying that, when you get the government to start subsidizing healthcare, because these hospitals or businesses, they're not there primarily for your health. They're there to benefit off of you coming to them for health reasons. They can charge more because they know the government is going to pay it, versus if it's up to the states or to the people, they got to be more competitive in pricing because they need your business. When the government steps in and say, hey, I got the bill, then yeah, they could charge more because the money's there. If it's up to the people or to the state, they don't know. They have to really be businessmen, and they have to advertise and do things like a regular business do to make money. It's the same thing in real estate. A lot of y'all watching may be into real estate. Most people go get Section 8 houses because it's a guaranteed check every month. And then they could charge more depending on what the government is paying out. It's kind of the same thing. It's the same thing with school tuition, colleges. A big reason why tuition is flying out the roof is because there's guaranteed money coming from school loans and grants. Instead of being like, hey, you know what, you got to work, you got to save up to go to college, colleges wouldn't be charging as much. But because they know the government is going to subsidize these things and the government can't regulate them, because in the free market, you're not supposed to regulate, kind of like Kamala wanted to do. She wanted to put price controls on grocery stores. That's socialist policy. And that's the only way to defeat and have like a free medical system. You have to change to a socialist type society for that. The government will have to control everything, because the government is going to have to start controlling prices and all that. It's no longer a free market. And you probably lose a lot of these businesses because most of these people are in health care for the business part of it. They're in it to make money like anything else. So when she says stuff like this, she's really misleading Democrats and liberals who don't really like the research. They get in their feelings and like, oh yeah, nobody should not have health care, not knowing that passing these policies are pushing the prices of health care premiums up. And then they try to scapegoat and say it's the billionaires causing it. No, it's not. The billionaires are doing what they're supposed to do. They're in business. They're in for-profit businesses, and that's what they're doing. Hospitals are for-profit businesses. You got non-profits, like some of these organizations that help out with like cancer and stuff like that. But for the most part, these are for-profit businesses, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And that's why the 10th Amendment is in place to stop stuff like this from happening.
To the care they need, where and when they need it. So we are saying to the majority Republicans that control the House, the Senate, and the White House, when you put forward a budget that takes away health care in order to give tax cuts to billionaires, we are not on board.
See, she just said it. That was her pretty much gaslighting and shifting the focus. Because the federal government should not be primarily funding healthcare. Like I said before, the Obamacare thing, if you notice on your job, healthcare premiums are slightly lower before 0809. And then after Obamacare came into place, every year it just kept going up and then it skyrocketed. Why? Because these businesses realize, oh, this is guaranteed money coming from the federal government. We ain't got to work with each state in their smaller budget. That's the competition that keeps the healthcare affordable. So y'all shouldn't really be voting for these types of policies. Like the Obamacare thing should have never happened. Like I keep telling y'all, the Democrats are trying to demonize capitalism when they're the ones benefited the most off of capitalism. The elitists and stuff on their side are the ones that are the heads of these pharmaceutical companies and everything else. And when they get you to push stuff like Obamacare and all that, they just getting richer. Why? Because when they push the policy, these companies can raise their prices because the government is subsidizing. Y'all should be going against government subsidies on a lot of stuff. We got to quit being lazy. We got to tell our churches, because a lot of these churches in the community in the states, they can get together a network like they do some of the food pantries and stuff. The few churches that do it, if they stop driving Cadillacs and Rolls Royces and wanting the biggest church in their neighborhood, they could get together and form committees and stuff that can basically do the same thing the federal government is doing, and then you can lessen the federal deficit while the states and local municipalities are pushing the health care. And you know what? Yeah, some states may not have as good health care as others. Hey, leave that state. But I'm telling you, the trade-off to try to make everything fair and even across the board is the reason why these prices are going up.
Come back to the table and get to work for the American people.
So how do you kind of force their hand? I know hundreds of federal workers across 60 different agencies and departments, they wrote a letter urging you and other lawmakers to try to rein in this White House, even if it means shutting down the government. Let me read part of that letter. Quote, every member of Congress should be clear-eyed. Ceding more of Congress's power to avoid a shutdown will only worsen the damage, embolden authoritarianism, and cost the country more in the long run. Congresswoman, are you willing to shut down the government?
Listen, when the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, when Donald Trump says, do not work with Democrats on this budget, what they are saying is they are unwilling to work and bring the American people into this argument. So,
no, that's not what Trump is saying. Trump is a businessman. Trump understands that what's going on with the Democrats trying to have so much government over everything is causing these price hikes. That's why he's saying don't work. He's basically telling the Democrats, y'all got to come with something better. I want to work with y'all, but we got to quit pushing all this funding through for healthcare because we're just driving the prices out the roof. He sees that. I see it. I said that before with the Obamacare stuff, that the federal government has their hands in too much. I'm going to stand on it. The federal government should not be involved in social programs as far as funding. Oversight, setting minimums to try to even the playing field across states. That's all they should be doing. That's the federal government's that's what they should be doing, regulating pretty much. But as far as pushing in money and stuff like that, that shouldn't be happening. The only things that should be happening for is like infrastructure and security. But that's what this woman, and it looks innocent because she's a woman. A lot of these women, she's doing girl math right now. That's essentially what's going on. She's using girl math to try to get these policies passed and playing on your heartstrings. And it just looks mean when Trump is like, no, the federal government shouldn't have that much money going into healthcare. That's essentially what he's saying. That's why I'm trying to explain it to y'all that don't understand. Go look up the 9th and 10th Amendments of the Constitution. You can Google it. And you'll see that there's an agreement between the states and the federal government that the federal government is not supposed to be doing too much overreach. And that's what this is. All right, I'm going to let her go for a little bit, then we're going to wrap this up.
if they want to pass a budget that is doing this health care cuts that is going to be so devastating to families who are already not able to afford the basics, then we will vote no on this budget. And if they want to shut down government over cutting health care, that is a very, just a horrifying decision on the part of the Republican Party. But that's what they're going to let us know, whether they're willing to do that or not. And I think it is important that you mention the doctors, the scientists, the nurses, who we are hearing from, who are saying we have to take a stand. We have to stand up and show the American people that we see them. We know they are struggling, and we are not going to stand aside and rubber stamp an extreme agenda that takes away their health care and makes life harder and more expensive.
Yo, we got to quit blaming the government for everything. That's essentially what she's saying. If the government don't step in, then people are going to suffer because the government is not stepping in, instead of people are suffering because they made bad decisions. I know it sounds mean as hell, but what the Democrats are essentially doing, they have jumped on the enabling bandwagon. They are enablers. They are so afraid to tell people to be responsible, get your shit together, and do better for yourselves. They won't do that. And the reason why they need these bad decision makers in order to have some type of power. because on the opposing side would be us conservatives, Republicans, who are like, make better decisions. That's pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. That's what that means. Stop waiting on the government. Make better decisions. Do your finances better. I was doing my healthcare stuff with my lady a while ago. This was last year. And we were going through the deductibles. And pretty much you pay more the lower your deductible. So, you know, you got like $1,000 deductible or up to $3,000. And the lower it is, the higher your premium is going to be because they're footing more of the bill. That was a moment where I looked and said, I'm a grown ass man. I should be able to have $3,000 in case of a medical emergency. And for the both of us, $6,000. I'm like, there's no reason why anybody over age 30, in your 20s, you kind of can mess up a little bit. You should be on top of this. But if you're over age 30, there's no reason why you shouldn't have at least 10 grand put away for an emergency. That's likely to cover a roof if you got a house, a car if you need a car to get around, or medical emergencies. Even on car insurance, if you go save the money yourself and invest it, you're paying less in car insurance because you can have a $3,000 deductible on your car insurance. But see, the Democrats aren't saying this. They want to say, hey, let's push more money, more funding into people who are irresponsible so they can get that little $1,000 deductible at a cheaper rate, which is just driving up the deficit instead of saying, you know what, y'all be responsible and y'all go save this amount of money. And from that point on, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to save my own deductible. Anything I need a deductible on, I go hustle that up and put it in the stock market. That way it's gaining interest. And if I need it for an emergency, I can go pull it. So that's how I want to end this with y'all. If y'all haven't thought about that, this is what you take away. Stop paying extra money to these insurance companies just so you can have a lower deductible. Go save your own deductible. All right, y'all, subscribe to get more information like this that could better your life, or just like the damn video. I'm out.